I do not know about the mics. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order right now. The time is 6:02 p.m. and we will now call this public hearing of the Board of Selectmen to order. Before we move on to the public comment, I am going to read the legal notice as it was printed and published in the Middletown Press dated June 8th, 2024. And so this is a legal notice of public hearing, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, pursuant to Section 503A of the Portland Town Charter. A public hearing will be held by the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, to obtain public comments and questions regarding a proposal to appropriate $68 million for costs related to the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to 5 school, the quote project, and to authorize the issuance of the town bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $68 million to finance the appropriation or so much thereof as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Public access also available through Zoom link A, portlandct.org, dated the 6th day of June 2024. Tess Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. And so we also have the resolution, which this is a public hearing to listen to comments from the public. And so I'll read the resolution and then we'll open it up to public comments. There is a sign-up sheet by the podium. If anyone would like to comment, you can sign up now. We're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes to start, and if there's more time and people want to speak, you can get a second chance to speak after. And we are going to pause the public hearing at 6:30 because we have another public hearing, and then we'll pick it back up at 7:30 if there are more comments. All right, and let me just read this and then we'll start the public comments. This is the resolution. Town of Portland, Connecticut, Board of Selectmen, June 5th, 2024. Resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the Town of Portland, the town, appropriate $68 million for the costs related to the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to grade 5 school. The project. The appropriation may be expended for site improvements, design, construction, renovation, and installation costs, engineering and professional fees, inspection, evaluation, and surveying costs, materials, equipment, furniture, purchase costs, legal fees, financing costs, interest expense on temporary borrowings, and other costs related to the project. The appropriation shall include any federal, state, or other grants and aid received for the project. The Board of Selectmen or a building committee, if established, is authorized to determine the particulars of the project. The Board of Selectmen may reduce or modify the scope of the project, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the town finance the appropriation by issuing the town bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $68 million, or so much thereof as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby refers the project to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 8-24. So with that, we'll open up to public comments, and remember it's three minutes to start. So I believe Susan Bransfield is first.
Everybody hear me okay? Good evening, my name is Susan Bransfield. I live at 16 Colombo Road, and I've lived in Portland more than 40 years. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all the voters, all the elected and appointed officials for your work. I know you all care deeply about quality one of the smallest towns in all of Connecticut. Doesn't make sense. This is a weak plan. There are many concerns, and I believe there are reasonable doubts. To quote one of our officials, we are depriving the kids with this school. But don't take my opinions. I reviewed some recent meetings, and I'd simply like to echo what our elected officials have said about this proposal. Selectman Hedrick said, I don't like it. Selectman Dillon said, I'm not exactly sold on this project. Selectman Manning said, it's not transparent. The deeper I go down this rabbit hole, the more I do not like it. I don't like it, I hate it. First Selectman Curley acknowledged it's not a perfect plan. I'm not thrilled with the price tag. Never thought when I was running for First Selectman, I would be closing 2 elementary schools. Selectman Tripp said there are concerns about lunch and gym. Selectman Pelton said, and this was a little curious, I need to talk to Mike about this. He said, this will change the nature of our school system. And I'm not sure that I understand that. All I want to say is I love Portland schools, and I love all the dealings with teachers and staff. You are doing a wonderful job, and I am very appreciative for many years for the work that you do. Selectman Hernandez said, this is not the best plan for the kids. It's not because of money. The concern is having all the kids in one place. Security reasons. 700 kids, all in one school. We are depriving the kids with this school. The education specification plan was approved by 4 out of the 7 Board of Education members, which is
Susan, just 30 seconds. Sorry.
the bare minimum needed to pass. It was rejected by 2 members, one of whom is a certified teacher. And she, Kimnati Marushak, says, students are what we're about. She has concerns regarding the plan and doesn't think it's the best option. And Tim Lavoy, Board of Ed member, says he doesn't think this is a path we should take. Respectfully, Selectmen, this is your vote tonight. We, the voters, didn't elect the survey to represent us, we elected you. We chose you, and we choose you to make the best solutions. Please, let's not waste time on a question that may be defeated in November. Rather, please reject the question that is so full of doubts. Put forward a question we can all get behind. We can get it done together as a community. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your work. I know it's not an easy job.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Next is Beth.
I talked too long there, so I'll listen. Thank you for letting me speak the last one. So, as I said, I'm 39 West Hatton Hill. Actually, my name is Susan, but I do not want to, 48 years, I don't like I'm not after Susan, you're such a good job speaking. So, like I said in the last meeting, the reality is, it's going to cost the taxpayers about $100 million to go down the road you're going down to go to referendum. And I think it's doing terrible injustice by allowing it when we don't have a real plan to pay for it. So at the end of the day, unless you want to show me how we're going to pay for the new approximately $2.2 million or whatever, you can sit around the table and figure out the numbers exactly what they are, because they're still changing to this day. So at the end of the day, it's a $68 million project. It's going to be approximately the first half, $34 million finance over 30 years. Comes out to 83 and change. So the problem here is, why in the world would we ever finance something for 30 years that we know is going to fall apart? If that's not the definition of mismanaging public funds, I don't know what is. Think about that for a minute. We know this building is standing in was renovated to new approximately 19 and a half years ago. It needs approximately 12 million, 11 years, give or change, we don't argue that got at 20%. So more than 12 million in deficiencies using the same survey that they use to get us to the point where we want to live in school. So I completely disagree. There is no plan what to do. We'll just leave it down to you. This is being rushed. We need to take a break. It shouldn't go to referendum. I'm praying you guys get this. We can't pay for it unless you guys know something I don't know. At the end of the day, close value at the end of this year. The superintendent pointed out, that works fine. We don't need it. We weren't gonna use it for 1 to 3 years for construction and end the conversation there until we figure out how we're gonna pay for it. That'll help you. If there really is a 600,000 savings, we're gonna learn it. And that'll help with the money that I'll be voting in favor to give them. Their shortcomings this year due to things out of their control. I respect that. They're gonna need whatever they thought to appropriate $375 whatever this thing. I get it. But that closing that school at the end of this year is the only thing you should talk about. I'm not going to recommend on this. I think it's a big mistake. We don't have enough information, so I'm gonna hope you guys do the right thing tonight on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. All right. I don't know who's next on the sign-up sheet. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know. We have your address, so, and name, so. Yeah,
Okay, so
thank you.
we do 22 Prospect Street. I am also an 8th grade teacher here at the middle school, and I'm speaking with 32 years' experience working in Portland public schools. And while I appreciate opinions of others, it's also the boots to the ground in there every day with the conditions that we all are working on and the things that I hear about. I also serve as our association union president, and I'm often hearing, getting messages from teachers about the HVAC systems. It's 54 degrees in Bellevue, you know, they're going on for hours during the day when it's 50 degrees out, when it's a very cold, cold day out. Taking it back to beginning of September, we had a week just like we're having right now, and we had nearly a week of early closings. We would have a week of early closings for this week if we happened to have been in school. While it's a big price tag to swallow, it's something that we need to work on. The fact that we have so many schools, there's way too many transitions for our kids. By the time they come to the middle school, they've already been through multiple schools, and it's hard for them to transition again, once again. With this building project, there will be a great consolidation of services, things like speech and language, PT, OT, custodians, and even speaking as the president, there will be a loss of teaching staff, but it is to be understood as part of the consolidation as something that we will prepare for. The idea that the technology and infrastructure is not quite up to date in that these older buildings have not been able to, were never maintained or were never built for the technology that we still have, that we currently have. I taught for a number of years at Gildersleeve and Brownstown. I'm one of the few teachers that have taught in 3 different buildings. And the buildings are very difficult to teach them. The space, the educational space is just not appropriate for children. While this plan may still have changes and things to do, it's a step in the right direction. One of the most important things that we have to improve is our security. We are doing the best we can, but we're doing the best we can with the bare minimum. So I do implore you to bring this forward. We can tweak out the results, and not the results, but the final designs and the things that we need to get done, but we need to make some change in town. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, Laura?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to urge you, members of the Board of Selectmen, to move the proposal to consolidate our elementary schools forward to referendum so that the voters of Portland can have a direct say in the future of our public schools. I would like to recognize we are here tonight as a direct result of 4 years worth of deliberate hard work and input by many different individuals from the Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, district teachers and administrators, professional consultants, and from the larger Portland community. I want to express my deep gratitude to everyone who has brought their voice to this process, but most especially to Luke Hare and the Facility Study Committee for their commitment, thorough analysis, and effort in whittling down 9 or 10 possible solutions to our aging infrastructure. Their labor provided us with 2 excellent finalist consolidation plans. Reasonable people will disagree about whether the single pre-K-5 school model or the 2 pre-K3 and 4-5 schools model is the better choice. While as a parent, I have a preference for the one school model that we are here to discuss this evening, I would have been on board 110% with either plan, as both represent thoughtful and strategic pathways for our district. These options were shared with the community, and the community asked us to move forward with a plan for one pre-K-5 school. What is clear is that Portland cannot afford to make capital improvements on and continue to operate 3 separate elementary schools. What is also clear is that we have an ever-shortening window of time in which to act before we will find ourselves in a really bad situation with our aging elementary schools. Consolidation is a financially smart move that will capitalize on significant reimbursement from the state, will save our community an estimated $1.2 million annually in administration and operations costs, and will allow us to more effectively and efficiently provide educational programs and student support. Most importantly, there are truly exciting academic benefits and opportunities for our students. A modern, safe, and healthy school facility designed for 21st century teaching and learning will create an environment where students will thrive. By moving this proposal forward to referendum, you can acknowledge all the work that has gone into getting us to this point and give the people of Portland the opportunity to make an informed decision about the future of our schools. Thank you for considering this important step and for your ongoing commitment to our Portland Public Schools.
Thank you, Mark. All right. All right. How you from?
Hi, so I just wanted to say that I have a lot of concerns about having one large mega school in our small rural town. That would be one of the biggest schools in the entire state for pre-K through 5. And I also am concerned because I watch the town meetings, and I know that this does not include the estimated $12 million, which is probably more now because it was a few years ago, that the middle school, high school complex also needs. And I have a lot of doubts that if this passes, that a couple years later, the town would be willing to absorb another $15 million to fix this school. So we'll have one huge school that's brand new, shiny, and another school that is still falling apart. And we're still in a financial crisis. And then I also have been watching the meetings, and the fact that we already have contingency plans for what might be happening at Brainerd Place. So we already have an expansion plan for a school that hasn't been passed referendum yet. Really is a big concern for me, as well as watching the building usage about, closing Gildersleeve and Brownstone. And we're already talking about the fact that Park and Rec needs the gym that will now no longer exist. So now we also are having contingency plans about what do we do about the fact that we've now eliminated Park and Rec space. So I just think it's very irresponsible to develop this school that has not even been approved for referendum yet, and we already are making modifications because we know for a fact it's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, April. All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Witchy at 21 Cody Lane, and I have to be honest, I actually don't want to be here. It's my first night of summer, we just wrapped up the school year, but here I am. And the reason I'm here is because I feel so strongly that we should send the school referendum to, or the school consolidation to referendum. One thing that's incredibly frustrating is hearing numbers inflated. If you would like to know accurate information, I strongly suggest after this, reach out to Dr. Britton, look on the website. All of the plans have been proposed. Nowhere is there $100 million in there, so I think it's important to be accurate. I echo Laurel's thoughts, but I'd also like to add some of my own. I am a certified teacher. I've just completed my 19th year, my 4th year in Portland. My first 15 years of experience came from Newington, which is a much bigger district than Portland. And when I first came to Portland, I was honestly kind of shocked by the lack of communication between schools. We are separate islands, and not only do we feel that as staff, but parents feel that as well between different, spirit weeks and all the events and things that go on. If we consolidate, we simplify life. And as a parent of 3 children, life is crazy. So the simpler, the better. There's been some talk about this mega school and the culture. One thing that we did in Newington to keep our school feeling small was to have something called school families, where we got kids in K through 4 together, 2 or 3 kids per certified or any staff member actually, because we had even the custodians have a school family. We got together and we did SEL lessons, and that really, really enhanced the culture. One other thing I would also like to touch on is the current state of our learning environment. On Friday, I was kind of curious, supposed to be a hot day, I brought in a little thermometer to my classroom. At 8:16, it was 78 degrees in my classroom with 54% humidity. At 12:16, the temperature outside was 80 degrees. At 12:28, the temperature in my classroom was 85. So it was hotter in my room than it was outside. I have 2 windows that open literally this much. There is no movement of air in my room. And that's the environment we're asking our second graders to learn in. We cannot wait. The time is now to send this to referendum. And while I certainly respect the work that you do, I believe that it should be the people of Portland who have the opportunity to voice what they'd like to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, my name is Jen Pickett. I live at 22 Foxthorn Road. I want to echo the same thing that Jen was saying, that Stu was saying. I also teach in Portland. I've been here. This is wrapping up my 18th year. But I'm also a parent of 2 little kids. I have a son at Brownstone and a daughter at Valley View. This plan makes sense for teachers. We are 3 separate elementary islands. We get kids from first grade that we've never met before, and they come to a brand new school as 6-year-olds. It would be so nice to create a community where kids had the same teachers, the same special staff, the same custodians, pre-K through 5. It makes sense for parents. I have to ferry my kids all over town to drop kids off. I have 2 kids that were in 3 separate elementary buildings. It makes sense for the community. People of Portland are excited about this. We want our kids to be in the same place for more than 2 or 3 years of their school life. And it makes sense for cost. We are gonna spend so much more money repairing all of these buildings that are literally falling apart. Please send this to referendum and let Portland decide.
My name is Donna Finkelstein. I live on 6 Joel Drive. And I want to thank you all for serving on the Board of Selectmen. It's not an easy job. But I think the reason why we all selected each one of you is because we entrusted with you to make a decision that was best for the whole town. Not for populations within the town, but it's hard for each one of you to say, I'm here as a Board of Selectmen member, not as a Board of Ed, not as a planning and zoning, but you're here. We do not have a Board of Finance here. I haven't heard anybody talking about what the impact is going to be on the tax rate. I have people in my neighborhood who have said to me, Donna, you should go and say the reality. The reality is taxes at this time are going to go way up. And it's going to go way up. You have to say, is it necessary that we spend this amount of money for a mega school in Portland, Connecticut? We're in Portland, Connecticut. We're not in Glastonbury. We're not in Cromwell. We're not in East Hampton. We're a very small town. And I urge you, just like the people of town who came, look at the people here. Do you realize this Board of Selectmen is making a decision tonight that's going to affect every family, whether you have kids or grandkids? And look at the people who are here. The last time we made a decision like this, it was a $40 million project of the high school. What's facing you now is that you have the responsibility to do what's right for all the taxpayers. What is it that Portland can afford to do? Not what we would love to do. I would love to have a beautiful, big, beautiful, brand new school, but not without knowing how much my neighbor, who's on a fixed income, what his taxes are going to do. So I say, well, it's too late now. The horse is already out of the barn. Board of Ed approved it. What's really interesting to me is that you had a committee of our fellow citizens who served 2 years to to put together a most amazing, and I'll show you all the documents, you've had all the documents, you've heard from Mr. Pear and his wife and Ingrid Swanson, other people who have said we have questions. We all have questions. We all have questions. It's not an easy decision. But the fact that you held this meeting tonight, when parents are on vacation, their families are gone, their grandparents are gone, the teachers are gone, leads the discourse to be limited. It's time to say three things. Is it necessary that we build a mega school? The answer is no, it is not. There are multiple options, and many of them are less expensive than the mega school. Is it needed? Yes, there are, without a doubt, many things that our teachers need to be comfortable. And finally, is it truthful? Yes, it is, from that point of view. There's a lot of important point of views. I just urge you, there is no pressure for you to decide that you have to do this tonight. What if you put it off for 6 months? What's the difference? The difference is families, everybody can give you input. Do the right thing. Do what's right for all those seniors who don't have extra money after electricity and water.
Thank you.
So I urge you to just think of all that before you vote tonight.
Thank you.
Dave Murphy, 40 Carousel Drive. I got them just some brief comments. I'm going to preface this with stating the obvious for everyone in the room, that everyone will have an opinion. And we can't let a select few decide for everyone, like some people want to. Let the people vote and decide. I think that's pretty much the basis for everything. We all probably can agree with that. For anyone who dislikes this plan, I can find someone who loves this plan. So we gotta really let the people vote and decide. I've been on this journey for 4 to 5 years. I'm from day one, and a lot of dedicated volunteers put in a lot of hours and a lot of studies, taking it from 12 plans down to a select few, vetting the numbers, looking at the best option. There is no best option, but there's an option we must go down because we gotta do something. You know, the prior, we all know how we got in this situation by not having any capital money used to update our elementary schools. We're at an inflection point now where we can do something about it. We're at that, I call the sweet spot, where the bonds are starting to come off from the high school. We're starting to get more tax revenue from Brainerd Place and the Nordic Spa, and we're going to save probably close to $1 million in overhead savings if we repurpose these 2 buildings and consolidate one school. The new school will be magnificent, beautiful, state-of-the-art, energy efficient, and lastly is the teachers and the parents want this, and the educators want this. Shouldn't they be the people that are helping to drive the decisions? They've been part of the study, they're not out in the field. They've been helping to say this is what works for the students. And again, last 2 things is, I sort of take offense to some people that come here in the last minute and say they've got this grandiose plan, why don't we do this, why don't we do this? Where were they for the last 4 or 5 years when there was committees, people volunteering for committees, stepping up, doing the research, and then to come in at the 10th hour and say, I'm going to save everything, but they're not. So again, let the people vote and let the people decide.
Thank you, Dave. How many more people?
Just Spencer, Peter.
Just Spencer. Okay. So if there's no more after that, all right, well, we'll keep going. Okay. Yeah.
First, I'm a father of 5 that are in the school system, and I respect what teachers have to say, but it's hard to go against what their boss wants at this point. So back to the numbers. $68 million is the number on the table. They say the reimbursement will be half, approximately. That puts you at $34 million, financed over 30 years, comes out to a little over $83 million. This does not include the $12 million, plus they claim it's 20% higher now, so that makes it $14.4. So if you add $83 million, $14.4, and then let's put some interest on the $14.4, you're over $100 million right there. And that does not include just so we're clear, does not include any repairs to the new facility in year 20 when we're still paying for it for another 10 after that. So I understand numbers. These are the numbers that were presented to me as a taxpayer. It is over 100 million, so if one more person stands up here and doesn't say the correct numbers, I'm gonna call them out, and that's fine. So at the end of the day, David Murphy just said people want to come in at the 11th hour. Wrong. I sat on the board of education for 7 or 8 years, and the only school that was ever identified that could be closed is Valley View. It didn't even make the cut. So I don't know who had an agenda or why or where that came from. But at the end of the day, if we had to close one school tomorrow, it is going to be Valley View. And I agree with the teachers. We do need to fix our facilities. It comes out to about 27 million to fix what we have. Right now, it was identified to be 28 million. If you take Valley View off the list, it puts us down to approximately 22. You do the $1.5 million in AC or HVAC repair up here, puts us down to about 20. You take out the generators and a few of the other fluff, puts you down to about 18 million. 18 million financed over 15 years, not 30, comes out to approximately $27,500,000. Those are all real numbers. If nobody likes it, tough. There's a $27 million option that was never even explored. I'm not coming in at the 11th hour if that was directed at me. I sat up here and I knew what it was. Luke Perry had another beautiful idea, closing one of the schools. That's not where we're at. We're talking about a $68 million project that we cannot afford. And if we can afford it, please show me. I want to fix all the ACs. I want to fix all the schools. We can do all that. In the numbers I just threw out there. Those are facts. So, I think, let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. I think I covered it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to comment? Briefly, but just, well, yeah, you can.
Aware that the study committee that worked on this for 2 years, their plan wasn't even on the survey. There was a superintendent of schools. It was run by a very, very well-respected elementary principal. And the survey that went out that everybody's saying we have to do because what the survey says, that wasn't even on the survey as a choice. Read the report that what they recommended is a two-school model to you. That's what they recommended to this board, a two-school model, not a mega school model.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to comment? If you change your mind, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Education did receive several letters. I do have one letter in favor of the proposal of the bonding measure from Sarah Spear. I have a letter of opposition from Darcy Parmalee. I have a letter of opposition from Martha and Jay Swanson, and I have a letter of opposition from Ingrid Swanson, and all of those will go into the record of the meeting, of the public hearing. Is there anyone else we'll ask again?
I just have one more comment. Under safety. Under safety. The school system, when you divide it into fourths, approximately 25% of our population at 4 different facilities will be much safer in the long run if there ever is an incident. At the end of the day, it's not just what happens to certain children, it's who watched it and all that. When you divide the population into quarters, it would be much safer. I do understand that they were sleeping with a new vestibule in the front, and I'm fine with that. That's in my numbers, or that's it. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for public comment? Well, I want to thank everyone for their comments. I know this board does not have easy decisions to make currently, so I want to thank everyone for attending and for all your thoughtful comments. If there's no other public comment, we'll close the public hearing then at 6:36 p.m. The next item tonight is we have a second public hearing this evening. And let me just get that. So again, we'll start this public hearing. I'm going to call this public hearing to order at 6:36 p.m. We're a little late, but I think it's well worth it. I'm going to read the legal notice. of the public hearing, and then I'll read the resolution, and then we'll open it up to public comment again. So this is a legal notice of public hearing, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, 06480, pursuant to Portland Town Charter, Chapter 12, Section 1203.4, a public hearing will be held by the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. at the Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, to obtain public comments and questions regarding the proposed supplemental appropriation in the amount of $375,000 to the 2023 to 2024 General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education. At the hearing, all interested persons may be heard and written communications will be received. Public access also through Zoom. Link A, www.portlandct.org. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation to Board of Education General Fund Operating Budget in the amount of $375,000 through an increase in estimated revenues in line item number 01-000-000-00101, Education Cost Sharing Grant of $48,917, and from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund of $326,083. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection in the town clerk's office and on the town's website at portlandct.org, dated at Portland, Connecticut, the 6th day of June. Attest Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. And I will read the full resolution so that everyone's aware. Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, June 5th, 2024. Supplemental appropriation for 2023 to 2024 General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education. Whereas the Board of Education is experiencing overages in fiscal year 24 in purchased services due to not being able to hire or find an internal position for speech and language services that then needed to be provided by a contractor, as well as the need for more physical therapy and occupational therapy services than were originally expected. And whereas in fiscal year 2024, the Board of Education has had additional tuition costs to private sources and tuition costs to local educational agencies in state due to unexpected outplacements. And whereas the Board of Education is incurring more transportation costs for students due to the increase in unexpected outplacements. And whereas due to the additional costs placing a significant strain on the Board of Education fiscal year 2024 budget, the Board of Education is requesting $375,000 supplemental appropriation to the 2023 to 2024 General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education. And whereas revenues and education cost sharing grant 01-000-000-00101 have come in higher by $48,917 than budgeted, based on an adjustment by state. And whereas an additional $326,083 would be allocated from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund to cover the remainder of the Board of Education's request. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the supplemental appropriation to Board of Education General Fund Operating Budget in the amount of $375,000 through an increase in estimated revenues to line item number 01-000-000-00101, Education Cost Sharing Grant of $48,917, and from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund of $326,083. And then I want to point out that pursuant to Chapter 12, Section 1203.4 of the Portland Town Charter, that this will require a special town meeting, which will be held directly following the public hearing. So with that, there is no sign-up sheet for this, but we'll open it up to public comment. So if there's anyone that wants to comment on this, please come up to the podium.
Hello again. Laurel Steinhauser, 56 Prospect Street. As the chair of the Board of Education, I'm here to discuss the importance of the proposed supplemental appropriation we are asking you all to support. This funding is essential to address a deficit in this current fiscal year caused by rising special education costs. Specifically, we've seen an increase in the number of students who require outplacements as determined by their individualized education programs. While special education costs, as a rule, are challenging to predict, it is common practice and has been Portland's practice to budget for the students we have currently identified. In January 2023, we budgeted for 17 student outplacements based on known student needs. In the 23-24 school year, we saw an increase both in students moving into district and in current students with increased needs. And throughout the school year, we had between 20 and 24 students requiring outplacements. At our peak, that was 7 students beyond what was budgeted. The combined tuition, transportation, and related services for these placements resulted in a deficit of $750,000. Additionally, the district was unable to hire a qualified speech-language pathologist. This is a significant shortage area, and we had to rely on contracted speech and language services this year. These contracted services added over $100,000 to the deficit. Compounding these financial challenges, over the past several years, we've experienced a decrease in state reimbursement for special education costs, and this year was no different. Portland received about $65,000 less in reimbursement from the state than was anticipated this year. It's important to note that Portland is not alone in experiencing increased special education needs and funding challenges this year. It's also important to recognize that providing these essential services is not a choice, but a legal obligation. Federal and state laws mandate that we deliver appropriate educational services to all students, including those with special needs. Beyond the legal imperative, we have a profound ethical responsibility to meet the individualized learning needs of our community's neediest and most vulnerable students. These students depend on us for the support necessary to succeed academically and personally. Over the past 5 months, we have been transparent about this growing deficit and our anticipated needs. We have communicated consistently with the First Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, and the community, outlining the challenges and the steps we are taking to address them. Our administrative team has done an exceptional job managing and mitigating the deficit by freezing all non-essential spending, leaving positions vacant, and penny pinching wherever possible. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Britton, Assistant to the Superintendent for Business and Financial Affairs, Stephanie Pergola, and Town Finance Director Tom Robinson have the support and gratitude of the full Board of Education for their work in managing a very difficult financial situation. This supplemental appropriation is critical to ensuring that we can continue to provide the necessary services without compromising the quality of education for any of our students. Supporting this appropriation is about balancing the budget, but it is also about affirming our commitment to all students and ensuring every child in our district has the opportunity to succeed. Thank you for coming out tonight, and I urge you to vote in favor of this supplemental appropriation for the benefit of our students and our community.
Okay, thank you, Laurel. Is there anyone else public comment?
Thanks, Scott, 5 Freeway. I would just echo what Laurel said. I serve on the Connecticut State Board of Association of Board of Educations, and I have heard from many, many districts, large and small, deficits that are in the millions. With layoffs and closing programs and stopping athletics in some cases, and all of the special additional music and art programs. We are in a hole, and we are seeking the Board of Selectmen and the town to help us fill that gap. But I would just say that we are luckier than some because we did fiscally manage the money that we were given through ESSER and ARP. And if it hadn't been for some surprise arrival of students and necessary outplacements, we would probably have ended with maybe a little bit over this year. So please support the effort to close that gap for us, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Meg. Sue?
Sue Jubal, 22 Prospect Street. Again, I'm speaking as a boots to the ground teacher. The budget is something that we all deal with throughout the school year. We might find some new or unusual thing that we hadn't actually budgeted for, and many times we can go and ask, and sometimes we might be able to find somebody or work something out. But this past year, it's been very difficult. We've all been able to manage through very good, money management coming down from Stephanie down into our administrators to just surviving with the bare minimum. This is something that we need to do because these students that were not expected to either moving into town or just new identifications is something that we can't predict for. This is not a case of not being able to manage funds or anything like that. This is just something that was not predicted. The budgets that we have been presented with, where we plan, we have to actually pick out our supplies that we're gonna need the next year in November of the previous year. So this is something that we all work with. We find out, oh no, you have to, cut out a certain percentage. We find ways to do that. And I do want to compliment the finance office at our Board of Ed for what they do. And this is something that was unpredicted. We can't control this. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I actually agree with everybody that got up and spoke, so we'll start off with that. But it was pointed out that obviously things are getting tighter and things are getting tougher. I don't see it getting any better, especially with the state not giving us what was expected. So at the end of the day, I do believe moving forward, we're going to have to cut Valley View. I think we should look into cutting one bus. Half the time we didn't get it anyway, so maybe we can do some savings there. The reality is we won't be able to afford everything they're asking for and everything they pointed out in time with a new school. It's going to be one or the other. I hope everybody can get why I'm so passionate. I want the money spent where we're going to see the results. The first Blue Ribbon Award in Portland is in our oldest facility, one of the oldest operating schools in the state of Connecticut. Nothing to do with the building. It has to do with the staff and it has to do with the tools you give them. So at the end of the day, I know what's coming. We can't afford $100+ million. I'll add to that. We can't afford the $27.5 million that we're probably going to have to do in repairs. They're going to need more money in the future. At the end of the day, the pot's only just so big. Unless you guys know something I don't, we've got a big decision to make. You guys have a big decision to make tonight. So I'm hoping everybody gets where we're at as a town and sees the knowledge we have just so far. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ben. Anyone else for public comment on this? There will be a public comment in the special town meeting portion of the next section of tonight's meetings on this topic as well, if you do change your mind. Ask again, public comment? I don't see anyone online. So with that, I will close the public hearing at 6:49 p.m. And we will now move on to the special town meeting portion, which we do have 2 special town meetings. And then after those special town meetings, the Board of Selectmen has a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen are going to take seats now, and we'll let the town clerk run the special town meeting. So, Mr. Town Clerk, we'll get out of your way for you. Oh, yeah.
You have pens up here for people to.
And there are 3 special town meetings.
Purple's first, yeah. So we're going in, you have your colored ballots, purple, the off white, and then the blue. Correct, yes. Yeah, so just so everybody knows, so there's 3 town meetings. We're gonna open and follow the process for each of those. So we'll vote with the purple ballot first. We'll close that town meeting, open another one, and sign. So you're not gonna put all the ballots in at once, okay? So good evening, everybody. The time is now 6:51, and I'll call the first special town meeting of the evening to order. The first order of business is to elect a moderator. Are there any nominations? Is there a second? A motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations? All in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. So moved. All those in favor of electing Sean Manning as moderator signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. So moved. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Michael. I would like to read the call of the meeting into the record as published in the River East News Bulletin on Friday, June 7th, 2024. I would also like to ask the town clerk to record the return of notice along with the minutes of this meeting. Legal notice of special town meeting, June 18th, 2024 at 6:45 p.m., Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, 06480. The electors and those persons eligible to vote in town meetings of the town of Portland, Connecticut are hereby warned and notified that pursuant to Chapter 12, Section 1203-4 of the Town Charter, a special town meeting will be held by the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 6:45 p.m. in the Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, for the following. Be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation to the Board of Education General Fund operating budget in the amount of $375,000 through an increase in estimated revenues to line item number 01-000-000-00101, education cost of sharing grant of $48,917, and from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund of $326,083. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection in the town clerk's office and on the town's website, www.portlandct.org, dated this 6th day of June 2024. Attest Ron J. Curley, First Selectman. I would now like to entertain a motion to introduce the resolution supplemental appropriation for 2023-2024 General Fund Operating Budget Board of Education and to waive the reading of the resolution. Yep. Any discussion, public discussion? Hearing none. Being no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to move the question tonight.
So at this time, again, this is a purple ballot. So you come up and just, like this, you know, just hands up here and you can then.
Okay, the motion passes. The result of the vote was 30 yes, 9 no, and 0 abstentions. Is there a motion to close this meeting?
So, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6:59, meeting is now closed.
Okay, so again, this is now the off-white ballot. I agree. Alright. Just give it 1 second. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the time is 7 o'clock, and I will call the second special town meeting to order. The first order of business is to elect a moderator for this meeting. Is there a motion?
I nominate Sean Manning as moderator.
Is there a second? A motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations? John? And Tim? Thank you. All in favor of closing nominations, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay? So moved. All those in favor of electing Sean Manning as moderator, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Michael. I would like to read the call of the meeting into the record as published in the River's News Bulletin on Friday, June 7th, 2024. I would also like to ask the town clerk to record the return of notice along with the minutes to the meeting. Legal notice of special town meeting Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, 06480. The electors and those persons eligible to vote in town meetings of the town of Portland, Connecticut are hereby warned and notified that pursuant to Chapter 5, Section 503F of the Town Charter, a special town meeting will be held on June 18, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, for the following purpose. Section 1, that the town of Portland, for the benefit of the town's Board of Education, enter into a lease purchase agreement to lease and subsequently purchase 18 photocopiers with a lease term not to exceed 48 months, and the lease purchase agreement principal amount not to exceed $150,000. And the annual payments under the lease purchase agreement consisting of principal and interest not to exceed $41,000 for the term of the lease, and to enter into a service contract for the photocopiers with annual payments not to exceed $25,000. Section 2, that the first selectman is authorized to determine the terms and conditions of and execute and deliver the lease purchase agreement and any related documents, and contract with contractors, vendors, and others on behalf of the town to complete the projects. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection in the town clerk's office and on the town's website, www.portlandct.org, dated this 6th day of June, 2024. Attest Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. I would now like to entertain a motion to introduce the resolution to authorize the lease purchase agreement and waive the reading of the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The resolution is the reading is waived. Is there any public discussion on the resolution? No? Being no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to move the question tonight.
Okay, this is the off-white color ballot. Are there any more for this special town meeting? Again, this is the off-white ballot.
Okay, the motion passes, vote of 36 yes, 10 no. Is there a motion to close this meeting? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? What is that? Meeting is now adjourned at 7:09.
So we just, the third one will start at 7:15, just as the published time. Okay? 7:15, and I will call the third special town meeting of the evening to order. The first order of business is to elect a moderator. Are there any nominations? Is there a second? A motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
I move to close nominations. I'll second that.
All in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. So moved. All those in favor of electing Sean Manning as tonight's moderator signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. So moved. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Michael. I would next like to read the call of the meeting into record as published in the River East News Bulletin on Friday, June 7th, 2024. I would also ask that the town clerk record the return of notice along with the minutes of the meeting. Legal notice of special town meeting, June 18th, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, 06480. The electors and those persons eligible to vote in town meetings of the town of Portland, Connecticut are hereby warned and notified that pursuant to Chapter 5, Section 503I of the Town Charter, a special town meeting will be held on June 18, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. in the Portland High School Media Center, 95 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, for the following purpose as it pertains to dewatering Job's Pond of current flooding conditions. Resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman, to execute and file such application with the USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, under the authority of the Emergency Watershed Protection to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Portland, and be it further resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman, to execute and file such applications with the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Portland. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection in the town clerk's office and on the town's website at www.portlandct.org, dated this 6th day of June 2024. Attest Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. I would now like to entertain a motion to introduce the resolution, Federal and State Grants, Job's Pond, and waive the reading of this resolution. I will now call for public discussion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ryan Curley, speaking as First Selectman about 795 Glastonbury Turnpike as well. I just want to be clear, I know there's a number of residents of Job's Pond who have come out tonight, and so I just want to explain to everyone present that the town has received 2 grants, and both grants cover 100% of the cost of pumping out or dewatering Job's Pond. So there is no cost to the taxpayers of Portland with what we're talking about now. I want to thank NRCS, which is a division of the USDA, for covering 75% of the cost with a grant. And I also want to thank the governor of Connecticut, Lamont, and also our state representatives, Senator Needleman and State Representative Christy Carpino, for getting this on the Bond Commission agenda for the state portion, which is covering the remaining 25% of the grant. So I really want to thank the residents of Job's Pond for your patience. Believe me, everyone is working as quickly as we can on this. The government just takes time, and this is one of the necessary steps to allow me to sign those agreements to enter into those grant contracts. So it should be not a very controversial vote of all the votes tonight. I think this one is not too bad. So thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Jeannie Bishop, 18 Job's Gate 1. I just want to say thank you
to everybody who has worked with us, but Senator Blumenthal was incredible. And I think he got everything rolling. And without him, we'd still be sitting in deeper mud, I'm sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? Being no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to move the question tonight.
At this time, just to be blue colored.
Okay, the motion passes 48 yes, 1 no. Is there a motion to close this meeting? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:26. Thank you.
started with our special meeting of the Board of Selectmen this evening. The first item on our special meeting agenda, I do want to point out that this is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We have a number of items to get through, and with special meetings, we can't add or change anything on the agenda, so we're just going to go through the agenda. The first item is a resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to grade 5 school. We can have discussion or someone can make a motion. Before we entertain a motion, I do want to talk briefly and for everyone here and who may be listening about how we got to this point. So a facility study committee was created in mid-2021, and it was made up of a number of residents, professionals who had administrative experience, teaching experience, members of the Board of Education, members of the Board of Selectmen. This was a highly qualified group of volunteers of Portland residents that met to determine what Portland schools needed and what the future of Portland schools should look like. I want to point out that the first thing that this committee ruled out in their deliberations was just fixing up the schools. They ruled out capital improvements as a viable option. What quickly became the two options, and there were diversions of each one, but ultimately there was a close one school model, which was close Gildersleeve School. And then there was another contingent that wanted to close 2 schools. And that included Brownstone Intermediate School, and that also included Gildersleeve School. And I know we have 2 members of the Board of Selectmen who were on that facility study committee. I myself attended those meetings, and I know that they did a lot of great work, and I really do want to thank Lou Pear and the entire committee. Dr. Britton was on it as well, or was a de facto member to conduct those public meetings where I think Lou and Charles went. How many did you conduct in total? 17? About 18 focus groups where they reached out to various stakeholders and groups in town to talk about what they thought the future of Portland Public Schools should look like. Now, everyone here on this board and everyone on that facility study committee and everyone on the Board of Education wants the best for the school, for the children of Portland, Connecticut. I want to make that clear. We all may have different opinions on what that entails, but I don't think there's anyone that doesn't want the best for the school children of Portland. But being mindful also of the taxpayers of Portland and the residents as well. And so it is a very, very delicate balance, and I know the Facility Study Committee worked very hard on that. So I just want to talk about those 2 plans. There were a number of options, as I think was pointed out earlier in the public comments, that the Facility Study Committee looked at. And each one of those had a price tag, an estimate from state reimbursement percentages and what the cost of those plans of each one would be. Now, the closed Gildersleeve option would mean to the Facilities Committee renovating to new Brownstone Intermediate School and renovating to new Valley View Elementary School. Whereas closing the Biz and Gildersleeve would mean renovating to new just Valley View. And so what you saw in the numbers, I think it's important to point out, was that renovating to new Brownstone Intermediate School and Valley View Elementary School was a more expensive model. It was a more expensive choice. Whereas closing 2 schools, decommissioning 2 schools, and just renovating Valley View was the arguably most affordable option of all the plans outside of capital improvements. Now, the committee was split, and because of the cost of renovating to new 2 schools, a proposal, a compromise was made by that committee to only renovate a portion of Brownstone Intermediate School and turn over the basement and the auditorium at the time. They considered turning over the basement of Biz and the auditorium to the town. And I had a call with the state, and they said if you do that, you would have to actually board up the auditorium, and if students were going to use the auditorium, they would have to leave the building, walk around, and then enter the auditorium from a separate entrance. Now, then the committee realized that that probably wouldn't fly, so then they added back the auditorium. But the plan was to still give the town the basement of the Biz. Now, this board, when we heard that plan, yes, it was less expensive than a full renovation of Brownstone, but it left us with a half-finished building. And it left the town with a basement, an unfinished basement, that was only going to have to need repairs and only going to put more expenses on the town side. So the Board of Selectmen didn't want that plan. I think we all agree that we talked about that plan, and we were torn. Just as the Facilities Study Committee was split, almost 50-50, we didn't know really what the townspeople wanted to do. So instead we conducted a survey. We hired a company, an independent company that specialized in this, and every resident or voter in Portland received a postcard in the mail with options that were 3 options. Close 1 school, which would have been Gildersleeve, close 2 schools, which would have been Brownstone and Gildersleeve, or capital improvements, and just fix up all the schools and keep them. I want to point out, I voted for capital improvements. I just want to go on the record, that was my choice. I'm a fix what we got guy. That's how I feel, personally. However, I'm not here to do what Ryan Curley wants. I'm here to do what the town wants. And the town responded with a survey and said that they wanted to close 2 schools and they wanted to renovate to new, Valley View. And they were okay with moving grade 6 to the Portland High School and having a pre-K to grade 5 Valley View. And the prices were there, and now obviously the price went from 27 million, which is what the initial numbers from Prior Architecture was on this project, to now an estimate about 44 million to the town before contingencies are factored in. And so the price definitely has gone up, but I also want to point out that the price would have gone up on any of those other options. And of all the options outside of capital improvements, the renovate to new, Valley View to a pre-K to grade 5 was the actually most affordable option out of every other option outside of capital improvements. I think that gets lost in the message, but I just want to explain how we got here. The Board of Selectmen has a very difficult decision to make on this, and I think we've reached the opinion that this is too big of a decision for this board, for the Board of Education, and that we need to let the voters decide. The reason why we're here tonight is because in order to let the voters decide, we want to make sure the most amount of voters are able to make their voice heard on this. That would mean putting a referendum question on a presidential election ballot. The only way to do that for 2024 is to move the following 2 resolutions forward. If we miss these deadlines, then we will have no resolution or no bonding referendum question on the ballot, and we will be forced to either put it on a municipal year ballot, which I don't think is a good idea because we don't want local politics to get in the way of this. We want the most amount of people in Portland to have a say in what happens with Portland's future. At least I think that's what this board wants to do. So a lot of work has gone into this over many, many years, and this is a culmination, and that's how we got to this point. I want to thank everyone that spoke in public comment. This is not an easy decision to make. And Susan Bransfield, who commented that I did not run to decommission 2 schools, is entirely right. But at the same time, I feel like I have a duty to go where the majority of the townspeople said that they wanted to go, and that's how we got here. And that's I don't know if I'll yield the floor on that, but.
Still comments?
comment before I.
The comment I have is that obviously I've been struggling with this for months. I've said on the record that I don't necessarily think the project is the best, but I do know, based upon the results of the focus group and Blue Bears group, and the results of the discussions among the former building committee, and the results of the survey that we did, that this is not a slam dunk in either direction. There are definitely mixed opinions on both sides of the aisle on this. It's difficult. I don't think it is appropriate for me to say this is what I think we should do when it's that close to the vote. I think it's fair that this goes to the voters and let them decide. I did say at the last meeting that I have been talking about this, and by the way, just for the record, who cares the plan? I will say I was the sole guy that voted in favor of it. And I still believe that that was a good plan. But I believe that at this point, we have to be educated. My only fear is, and I think this has to go, I feel it should go to the voters, but my fear is that people are not going to educate themselves on the question. And we may end up getting a vote that we don't want because people just didn't become knowledgeable of the issues. I think there's been a lot of discussion on this issue over the months. And really to date, I have not heard anything that really tells me that everybody has children foremost in their mind. It's a budgetary issue. The school board knows that we have too many schools open. That was a clear decision from all the focus groups. Everybody that spoke knew it is not feasible to leave all these buildings open. But the fact remains that there's a cost decision there. I know people have said that it's a pain dropping children off at 3 different schools. I did it. I had a child in Gildersleeve. At the same time, I had one in middle school and I had one in high school. So for me, that argument just doesn't hold water. The issue of having teachers being able to work together, I completely agree. But the cost, when somebody had mentioned people that are on fixed incomes, the cost that we're talking about, you have to remember when I believe that they said for a $250,000 home, we would be talking about $800, $840 a year increase in taxes. I have a mother who's almost 87 years old who owns a house that's valued higher than that, and she's on fixed income. So, for me, I was elected, Don, you said we're all elected here. I feel I was elected to this board not because I'm one party or the other, but I represent everybody. And I have to make a decision or allow the voters to make the decision that's best for this town. What I will do, depending on which way this goes, my plan at the next meeting, our next board meeting next week, I'm going to propose that we make a motion that Ryan facilitate the development of a very short, concise financial document that shows where we stand with the town right now and what we have to do in terms of financial needs now and into the future. We have wells that we are trying to drill, trying to get out from under MDC. We have Brainerd Place going in and a few other projects going in, and we need some enhancements to our sewer plant. There is discussion that we may not have a fire truck that is adequate for these tall buildings that are coming in. That would be something else that we have to do. The big thing for me was that we have a project for these schools, for the Valley View project, but it doesn't seem, for those who've lived here in town as long as I have, my son was in this school when they were renovating it. And it doesn't seem like it was 20 years ago, but it was. and it's time to make renovations again. And Ben, I do agree with you on that. You know, when you're taking out potentially a 30-year note, and in 20 years you have to make repairs, it's tough. So I just wanted everybody to understand my thought process and where I'm going. I just said from the very beginning on this thing, this is all about education, education, education. I don't want anybody going to the polls. They shouldn't be going to the polls voting on this until they understand what's going on. But we need to put that information out there as a board. And we need to get it on the website. We need to put a link to in the River East. I don't care how we get the information out there. But people need to go to the polls and feel that they thoroughly understand the financial circumstance that this town is in, what it's going to cost them, what the bonding is going to be, what the bonding that we have that's coming off is going to make a difference. They need to understand. But being that it's such a close vote, and it has been really ever since day one on both sides of the aisle, I'm leaning towards going to a vote and letting the town decide on this. That's just so you know where I'm coming from on this.
From day one, when we first sat down and Bobby and Michael were appointed onto that committee, and we started having the focus groups and then numbers started coming in, one of the things on the board was it has to make sense to everyone in town. We have to bring a question that's going to make sense to everyone that lives in town, every property owner that lives in town. I understand we need to put it on the presidential ballot. That's the smartest thing to do. Last meeting, I was quite upset, as you remember, because we had extensive talks about having a second question at one point in time in our discussions on that referendum, educating people there at what this school and the middle school need for repairs. And we've had talks, and you've been vocal, John, I've been vocal, Mike, on what are we going to do if 2 years later, 3 years later, we have to go to the well, ask voters for another $10, $12 million, or whatever it may be at that time. That leaves me pretty skeptical about what are we going to do. We have 30 years, 20 years to this building, like you said, and we have a sightlines report that has given us numerous things that we have to look into. I think we're on 2 or 3 years of that sightlines report.
Of the 10 years, yeah.
Of the 10 years. And we haven't really, I mean, I'm sure Bob Shay's put some effort into some of the smaller things, but if we're going to increase taxes on, what was that, $250,000 house? $800?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Roughly $800. And then we have water coming up. We have infrastructure we've known for years that we have had to have done on that sewer plant. That's another thing that should have started earlier, but that's a different conversation. So we'll have to do something in regards to that, plus maintaining our infrastructure, trying to fix these roads the way the taxpayers want. I personally don't see enough transparency in this to give the voters the proper education or the proper information as they walk into that booth in November. And I know there's a lot of people that worked hard on this. I was on the subcommittee with you on the survey.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time, me, you, Laurel, Dr. Britton, Ryan, on getting those questions right. I mean, there was a lot of emails when going back and forth before that went out to get those questions where, unfortunately, I think I was hoping for more than 1,000 people responding to that. So, I just, that's where I am at this point.
And just briefly, so trying to know the thing, and I've said this at other meetings, so it's, I'm a broken record, but I said when we did the survey, the first thing I did was flip to the page to see what everybody chose as their option. But the thing that comes with any survey is a host of data. And the one that continues to ring in the back of my head is the 82 or 83% of people in town who said they want to see what we're going to do with Biss and Gildersleeve before they go to the polls. And you know, I know that I believe you're on that building committee, and there's a lot of work there. But that is one of my fears, because if we do not figure out a way to utilize those buildings, at least make them net zero, then the costs that are being talked about aren't going to be there. If we have those buildings, or the bigger issue would be if the town taxpayers decide they want the school, but they also don't want to let go of the other buildings, or the cost of getting rid of one of the buildings with hazardous waste can be expensive too. So I agree with you. It's a difficult choice. Something's got to happen. The town has spent a lot of years and a lot of money on this.
Right. There's every action, there's a reaction, and if we can't, the town can't do something with those two schools, where it's still a burden on the tax rules, right? We're still paying for those, then that savings that Charles been talking about, that goes up the window.
It moves from the Board of Education's line item to our line item.
Our line item. And then the savings, now we're really not saving what we anticipated,
Right.
And the only thing I could say on that is we have some time on that.
Yeah.
But it's still, John, I'm with you, that's seeing what we've done with buildings, and that's why I think we are spending so much time on trying to come up with an answer, or suggestions, not an answer, because we'll never have an answer, but suggestions by the time the ballot goes to referendum.
Right. So I mean, I would like to try to as a board, put together a primer, if you will, a lot of good information, quick read information for people as to what the expenses currently are, what our expenses are expected to be. We just renegotiated contracts with town employees, both on the town side and the Board of Education side, so that's another issue that we have to address. It's no different than your house. I've said this many times, you save up the money to put an addition on your house, but before you go to build it, you realize you've got a furnace that's got about 2 more years and a roof that's got 5. And you have to plan for that. But you still have to get by.
I just have a couple thoughts about this, and I know this is a huge issue, not only for us, but for you and the audience and everyone that's worked on this project over the years. Can you hear me okay? So a couple of things. Everything I've heard tonight reinforces my belief that we should put it to the voters. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. I mean, the people that spoke either for or against it, if it was a vote with the letters and all, was 7-6 against it. 7 people said they weren't in favor, but 6 people said they were. So you got about half the town, the plurality of the town that's either for or against it. That tells me that people are paying attention, people are listening. So given that, it's the biggest project I think the town of Portland has considered. Susan quoted me to some degree, it's going to change the nature of our schools or town. I think the full quote was, this is a huge project. It has the potential to change the town, I think for the better, based on what I've heard from the educators and the people that are in it. So I personally think it's a good idea from the educational point of view based on the ones I talked to. But I know good people could disagree with some against it for different reasons and so forth. But because it's so mixed and because there's such a deep amount of passion for this, either or, I think it needs to go there. But to echo off of what both of you have said, there needs to be better education. I want to know more about the sweet spot that they've talked about in terms of how will the bonding fall off from the school project from 20 years ago. And how will that layer on if this project doesn't go fruition? What's that look like to a homeowner in town? So I don't have a clear picture of that. We have a lot of information, but it's not clear enough for me to advocate either side of it. And I think that's something that has to happen with this. It doesn't say that in here, but I know we're required to do this in order to be able to put it on the ballot. And we do have a small election coming up this November, right? A little one that's driving a lot of people out. Maybe 95% of the town will vote for it. So it's about as democratic as it gets for it to be in this election cycle. Any other cycle, I think it's skewed with those that are either super for it or super against it, or if it can bring out their base, can skew the result. And I think it's too big of a project for us to do that. So if anyone else has something to say, great, but I would want to move this forward so that it gives the voters the right to say yes or no. But between now and then, I'm going to educate myself as much as I can about this and all the details so that I feel comfortable telling a brand new family that moves to town that this will be worth your extra $800 something a year, whatever the number is. Or maybe at the end of the day, I'm not completely sold on everything. It may come back and maybe I won't hold that position after hearing all the details and all the money. So I just know what position I'm at right now, but more information may guide that. And I think it gives an opportunity for those against it and those for it to have a good old-fashioned debate and sell your point of view. I mean, that's what our democracy is about, right? Is advocate for your position, and there are real stakes in this. And because there are real stakes, I think the more involvement we can get, the better. So that's my two cents.
Yeah, it's funny, I listened to the conversation and it reinforces where I'm at. We're both the public comment as well as even listening to the commentary on the board. And then look at the history of this. It's been a 50-50 issue. I tend to agree that the fact that the first option that was basically put to rest was to do nothing, keep 3 schools open. When you look at the trends, the costs, where things are going, we need and we owe it to our taxpayers to operate more efficiently and to get to a more efficient model. I think that's important from a budgetary standpoint, and I think the long-term impacts on our students are that if we don't change the model, how else are we going to save that money, right? And you can have other ways that would be more impactful to the student experience, in a negative way, if we don't do something to operate more efficiently. So I do think the consolidation, whether it's closing 2 or closing 1, that's always been in my mind. That's been the 50-50 issue. I see pros and cons of both options. The fact that this is a lower cost option than the 2 and closing just 1. I initially had seen it the other way until I started looking at those costs. Having served on the Board of Education, I know and I can see the clear benefits from talking with teachers both back then and talking to teachers now about not having all of these transitions from school to school. The information that gets lost as students move from one facility to another facility. And the negative impact that can have. How some important information can get lost in that transition that can be detrimental. I do think having students that have sort of a consistent contact with folks that they have relationships with through basically through their elementary experience, I can see clear benefits to our students for that. The savings, you can parse those. They're talking about anywhere from $600,000 to $1.2 million. Some of that is in closing of facilities, and some of that is that in more efficiencies in terms of the personnel. I think the efficiencies in personnel can get realized regardless of what happens with the facilities, but to fully realize that we need to come up with a good plan. I look forward to that. I think I lament the fact that I think this is one of the things I think would cost us a little bit, getting that process started later than we probably should have. But we're working on it now, and I think we owe that a clear answer for some prospects to the taxpayers prior to November to do that. There's another part of this that I also look at, what's happening if we don't get on this cycle. then we're gonna have another 1 or 2 years worth of inflationary cycle. I don't necessarily think that's good for us as we go, right? I think all of the options that we're looking at will get more expensive if we wait a year, or if we wait 2 until we get to another 80% or 90% vote in a gubernatorial. It's just gonna get more expensive for us to do it. And some of the challenges we have with Valley View and the work that's needed, I don't know that you can start adding more years onto those facilities without incurring some real costs that become interim costs. So when I add it up, I think we really owe it to the taxpayers. We owe it to get a plan and put good information out so that people can make an educated vote in November. So I'll support this going to referendum on those basis.
I'm with, and I'll say it publicly, I'm with Ryan Curley on this. I'm a guy who wants to fix what we have. These are good, solid, structural schools that just need a little love and care. I think it would be a lot cheaper for taxpayers this way, and like I think that Sir said that we had one of the oldest schools in the country, in the state, and it still was a blue-ribbon school, and that wasn't because of the structure, it was because of the teachers that we have in there. And that's huge. I'd rather invest money in our teachers than in this, a new mega school. But I'm with everybody here. Like, I want to reiterate everything that everyone said here. But I would want the point that Susan made that I stood strong on security and how we would be the largest school in a small town. And I don't see the logistics of it working very well. I like the idea of breaking it up, security. Now, I'm not expecting anyone here to know this, but I looked around the room before when we had a full town meeting. I was the only kid, I'm a class of 92 student at Portland High, and I didn't see anybody else from 91 or 90. I was the only kid that was involved in the state shoot, in the Connecticut state shooting at our school, which was one of the first ones in the nation. I was there that day. It was scary as hell. As they shuffled us out of the school into a caged courtyard. We're just sitting ducks again. Security is huge for me. I was there. We all remember that. Everyone in my grade above and 2 grades above me remember that day. I can only imagine if we had 700 kids in one place, if we had the same kind of thing that happened down at Sandy Hook. I just don't like the idea of having that many kids in one area. Spreading them out throughout Portland, better idea. Have it all in one place, not good for security. And I'm going to stick to, as I said in past meetings, that I do not like putting this plan forward. I'll probably vote against it. An alternative I would accept is if we had this question proposed on the ballot, along with just capital movements. But I don't think that's a possibility at this point. So that's what I have to say about that.
I did ask if you could have an either-or question, and the answer from bond counsel was no, because you'd have to have 2 separate questions, and then the problem is, what if they both were to pass? That was the answer. So, but believe me, my initial thought was, why don't we put a question on the ballot this November where we ask, similar to the survey, and we ask the town, what do you prefer? Because we all want to do what the townspeople want for the town. And then it's up to us to make sure that it's affordable and that make sure that we can live within our means, which is also the duty of this board. And so, but I definitely agree with you, and I did want to go down that road, but that's how we led to the survey, that was a way where we instead mailed a postcard to every resident in town. And every resident in town did have an opportunity to make their voice heard on that survey. We only did receive 1,000 responses, but that doesn't mean that everyone had an equal opportunity to make their voice heard on that. And we're here acting on that because that's our duty, is to do what the townspeople want. And so I do want to point out that survey, we spent a lot of time on that, as well as the facility study committee. There's no easy answer on this at all.
Well, I know you said about the either or, and I agree, right, that makes complete sense to me, but I do think it's important that if we wanted to add a second question about the high school block, we could do that. That's just not required tonight. Tonight, the issue with this tonight is that we have a June 30th deadline for the application so that we can actually get, get this submitted and understand and basically be eligible for reimbursement. But a subsequent purely capital to take a look at that, we certainly could do that as an additional bond question as a board if we wanted to talk about the high school and the middle school boards as well.
What we talked about.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is very important.
All the questions, right?
All right. Like to read the resolution? All right. Town of Portland, Connecticut Board of Selectmen, June 18th, 2024. Resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the Town of Portland, the town, appropriate $68 million for the costs related to the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school, the project. The appropriation may be expended for site improvements, design, construction, renovation, and installation costs, engineering and professional fees, inspection, evaluation and surveying costs, materials, temporary borrowing, and other costs related to the project. The appropriation shall include any federal, state, or other grants in aid received for the project. The Board of Selectmen or a building committee, if established, is authorized to determine the particulars of the project. The Board of Selectmen may reduce or modify the scope of the project, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the town finance the appropriation by issuing the town bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $68 million, or so much therefore as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby refers the project to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval in accordance with Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-24.
I'll second the motion.
All right, further discussion. See none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion passes 4-2.
Next one also. Resolution to call a special town meeting and referendum vote. Whereas following a public hearing held on June 18, 2024, the Board of Selectmen has recommended that the Town of Portland appropriate $68 million for costs related to the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school, and finance the appropriation by issuing the town's bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $68 million, or so much therefore or thereof as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Be it resolved that the attached detailed appropriation and bonding resolution for the project, the resolution, is hereby approved and shall be submitted to a special town meeting to be held on Wednesday, June 26, 2024, in accordance with the attached warning of special town meeting, which is also hereby approved. A copy of the full text of the resolution shall be available for public inspection at the town clerk's office. Further resolved that pursuant to section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statute and in section 1204 of the town charter, the Board of Selectmen hereby submits the resolution to a referendum vote on the voting tabulators or the paper ballot for approval or disapproval by the voters of the town in conjunction with the general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Further resolved that the resolution shall be placed upon the voting tabulators or the paper ballots under the following heading. Shall the Town of Portland appropriate $68 million for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school, and authorize the issuance of bonds or notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $68 million to finance the appropriation, or so much as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project? Yes or no? Voters approving said resolution will vote yes, and those opposing the resolution will vote no. Voters qualified to vote who are not elected or shall vote at the Portland Middle School, 93 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, in accordance and with the procedures contained in Section 9-369D of the Connecticut General Statutes, which procedures the town hereby chooses to apply. Absentee ballots will be available in the town clerk's office. Further resolved that the town clerk is authorized to prepare a concise, explanatory text of the resolution which has been submitted to a referendum vote on the voting tabulation of the town. Subject to the approval of the town attorney, the Board of Selectmen authorizes the first selectman to prepare and print explanatory materials regarding this resolution. Such explanatory text and explanatory materials to be prepared in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 9-369B. That's it.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Just give me 1 second, I just want to make sure you got everything appropriately. All right. The next item on the agenda is an update on our water project. Our Public Works Director, Ryan O'Halpin, is with us this evening. Oh, you know what?
Transfer funds, education.
And hold on, the resolution that we just read, did we set the special town meeting?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then we have a resolution, thank you.
The beige.
Yeah, excuse me, the beige. So this is a resolution, this is, our Finance Director, Tom Robinson, is here this evening as well, if anyone has questions on this. But there was a project, you may remember, not too long ago, to remove oil tanks from Valley View, underground oil tanks from Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone intermediate schools. And those projects have since been completed, and they were completed under budget. There's $42,805 that was budgeted for those projects that are available. And so the Board of Education has requested that those funds be transferred into an account in order to use those funds for needed HVAC upgrades. And so that is the purpose of this resolution, is to reappropriate those funds. And I believe those HVAC upgrades would be at the secondary schools. I see Dr. Britton nodding his head. So it would not impact any of the schools that we were just talking about.
This is just a line item transfer
Mm-hmm.
from one line to another.
Did I move it or no?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution, dated June 18th, 2024, transfer of funds authorization, Board of Education system-wide BOE capital. Whereas continual needs exist to make HVAC upgrades in the district system-wide, and whereas the underground oil tank removal project at Valley View, Gildersleeve, Brownstone intermediate schools was successfully completed under the amount budgeted by $42,805. And whereas the $42,805 can assist to fund in part some of the needed HVAC upgrades. And whereas in account number 08-141-000-89010 Board of Education system-wide, $42,805 remains from the project oil tank removal / replacement system-wide. And whereas the Board of Education system-wide BOE-HVAC upgrades would benefit from $42,805 to make continual progress on projects. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Portland hereby approves the transfer of $42,805 to HVAC upgrades from oil tank removal / replacement. all within account 08-141-000-89010 Board of Education, system-wide BOE.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on this? John? All right, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Great, all right, now we will move on to item 5, which is an update on our water project from Public Works Director Ryan Halpin. Hi, Ryan.
So I'll open it up with, this is an update on the water source project, obviously, and we do have some positive things happening, even though we are in a tight timeline, as I said at the last board meeting. We met with the Department of Public Health on June 10th, and this was in a response to our application for DWSRF funding. And DPH had given us a path to move forward using the original water source contract from the RFQ and RFP that we did in 2021 and 2022. And this would allow us to do a contract amendment with GZA this upcoming year, which will need to be approved by the Department of Public Health before we move into the next phase, but would keep us eligible for future DWSRF funding. They did sound very positive that they do want to fund this project either through a loan or a grant. That was unclear at this point because they can't really tell us until we get the funding. But they did have an interest in doing that. GZA is currently now working on a contract amendment. There are different state regulations that need to be accounted for in this contract as opposed to the first grant, because the state revolving fund is just different. The first grant was treated as a steep grant, and this one's a state revolving fund grant. So I have GZA checking a lot of boxes. There's a checklist that DPH sent over, all of the information we need. They were very helpful, answered all our questions right away. And GZA is expecting to have this contract amendment to me in early July. He's hoping before the 4th of July weekend, but could possibly land a little after that. Then what I would be doing would be sending that over to the Department of Public Health for approval. Hopefully not many changes need to be made. Once we get their approval, we are able to move into the next phase. Now, to get the funding is going to take a little more time. So for DWSRF funding, they were saying later in the year, maybe September, October, November, but they were also saying that they would like to see the resolution where the town supports this project going forward prior to them, or they were saying that would help fund the project if they knew it had the support of the town. Now I know we can't get that resolution until there's a referendum and a vote on that. So that is something else that is going to possibly need to be voted on this year. Obviously at the last meeting, we still need to figure out how to move this project forward quickly. So even if the town were to fund the next phase, as previously talked about at the last meeting, we could then use the state revolving fund money later in the project, and they would be able to pay off previous phases that were funded by us. So it could get all wrapped into one larger loan or grant, depending how that shakes out at the time.
So this would give us the ability to move forward in the timeline we talked about, trying to get the well drilled so that we can meet the testing and all that during the quote-unquote drought months.
Correct, yeah, and GZA right now is talking to the drillers and trying to line up August, September construction date, but we need to have all our ducks in a row so we can sign this contract amendment and have the funding lined up for late July, mid-July. At one of those meetings, so we need to do some work on our end. That's why I felt it was important to come to tonight's meeting, even though we don't have a resolution on the table right now for this project. We are in a pretty good spot. Once I get that contract amendment and I see that GZA is going to come in with what we can fund for the next phase, I think that'll go. That'll obviously put all of our minds at ease that we could get this project moving forward and we could see the path where this can all come together. So it was a positive meeting. There's a lot of work on my end. I keep pushing GZA. I was on the phone with him twice today, but he's pretty positive and he's getting his drilling numbers. As far down as he possibly can. He went back to 2 drillers, one for the actual well and then one for monitoring wells to get those prices down as much as possible. And those contracts are going to be an open book for us. The whole contract is going to be wrapped into the state contract, which is going to be, we need to see what the subcontract agreements are, and he's only going to get a markup on top of that. Obviously, there's cost to GZA themselves, but we have hourly rates for their employees, and the state revolving fund requires open books and logging of hours. They want to see everything, reports at the end of each month for invoicing. They want to see how many hours someone worked, what the markup is. So it is going to be a little different than the last phase where it's more of a lump sum contract. So we will have a decent amount of control over the budget on this one. So that's good.
Ryan, another question. DPH, I know one of the questions we had with them was the exact location. And we were talking to them about specifically where in that north end of the recreational complex we'd be locating the well. Is that settled at this point? Do we know where we can place it, where the window would be that would be acceptable?
So it hasn't come back in writing yet, but this is a different department. Well, it's all of the Department of Public Health, but it's a couple different employees working on that one, and they have given me a lot of positive feedback about the location. They said I would have something in my inbox by the end of last week. I still haven't seen it officially in writing, but they are going to approve that location. As I've been told verbally at least 3 times now that they feel good about, and it could be anywhere on the north end of the park. They feel good, whether it's down on the slope closer to the path. We're going to put it up in the flat area though, that way we can fence it in and have control up there, and then it's out of the way of the path, the park. Everyone up there, obviously I need to come up with a better site plan so everyone can see that, but right now there's not much action going on over there, so should be good.
I was on that call, and it was pretty encouraging, so I do want to thank DPH for their assistance working with us, and hearing that revolving fund may be available for us in the manner that we did was pretty encouraging for where we've been on this project.
Also, I think very encouraging the fact that it can cover some things retroactively, so we don't get stalled given the tight timeline to when our MDC contract expires.
But as Ryan said, we very well may be talking about another question on the ballot this November. So we're going to have to...
By the time we get there, we'll be proficient.
That's what I said. Yeah. Thanks for your hard work, Ryan. I'm sure it's not over.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah. I'm doing everything I can to push this one forward. I know how important this one is.
Yeah, we're lucky to have Ryan who's been doing a good job on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
In town, sitting in the back too.
Oh, there it is. That's in my mind.
Always way back. Way back.
Blending in.
I think we'll see it through
There it is. I see the wave. If there's no questions or comments on the water project, then we move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is a resolution authorizing the fixing of real property assessments. This is a third amendment with BRT DeMarco regarding the Brainerd Place development. And let me just pull this up. I just want to talk briefly on this. As everyone is aware, planning and zoning denied the latest text amendment change, which would have allowed the proposal on Brainerd Place, the modification to go through. The developer who's here, Dave Bertram, is here this evening, has submitted to the town and shared with this board and to planning and zoning a new proposal. This proposal would require a change to the MUD regulations to allow healthcare institutions to be a part of the MUD district, which would then, if it were to be approved by planning and zoning, would increase the commercial space of Brainerd Place to a total of 195,802 square feet of commercial space, which would be 125,525 in Building A, 32,016 square feet of commercial in Building B1 and B2, 5,244 square feet of commercial space in Building C, 3,870 square feet of commercial space in Building D, 9,418 square feet of commercial space in Building E, 10,242 square feet of commercial space in Building F, 5,740 square feet of commercial space in Building G, and then 3,747,000 square feet of commercial space in Building H. And so instead of apartments at market rate apartments, it would be a healthcare institution. Dan can comment on that, but this board, I believe, was one of the two biggest things that this new plan would solve would be it would alleviate any concerns on the increase in school children to that additional apartments would have, and it would also alleviate any concern on traffic because during rush hour, because typically these individuals would not be commuting, and so it does seem like this board wanted commercial space. This is a plan that nearly doubles commercial space, and so tonight we're just talking about extending and granting an extension for the developer to complete phase 1. And so all it does is it extends the timeline to March 14th of 2025, where that would mean that the developer was still in compliance with financing, and it wouldn't jeopardize the financing of phase 1. It would give time for planning and zoning to work its way through planning and zoning, and then if planning and zoning approves that modification to the MUD district, well then we're gonna have to retool the tax agreement in its entirety. This is just a stopgap to allow for the process to be able to take place. And so that's what we're talking about here. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Great.
It also implements the additional protection requirements.
It does.
On the historic buildings before we do the CO.
It does require, I don't know where thank you. So I'll just go through each one. So instead of the current agreement had phase 1 completed on or before March 14th, 2024, this is on or before March 14th, 2025. Phase 1 includes, and it's the same phase 1 as before, and I'll just read it. Phase 1 will be completed on or before March 14th, 2025, and is anticipated to include restoration in place of Brainerd House, Building G, and Sage House, Building C, including removing the non-historic addition on the back of the existing building, construction of one 102-unit residential building, Building E, and commercial building, Building B and D, and part of Building A, as required by local zoning regulations to maintain balance between residential and commercial construction. 1A, the following date in the section titled Description of Proposal of Parcel incorporated as part of Exhibit A to the agreement is amended as follows. The date, March 14th, 2024, shall be changed to March 14th, 2025. And then, to Jim's point, item 2, a new section 8.7 is added to the agreement, and that is the developer must complete the exterior construction to buildings C, G, and H, those are the historic homes, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for building F. And then this agreement also, on the date of execution, item 3, BRT will pay the town the non-refundable sum in the amount not to exceed $4,000 to reimburse the town for its reasonable attorney fees incurred in connection with the negotiation and execution of this third amendment, which is appreciated, because this does cost money to have this all reviewed. And number 4, the notice of default from the town to BRT dated June 6, 2024 is withdrawn by the town and is null and void and of no further force and effect. And then item 5, the address of BRT changes to 18 Old Ridgeberry Road, January, Connecticut. And item 6, except as amended by this letter, all terms and conditions of the agreement shall remain in full force and effect in accordance with its terms. Item 7, this third amendment is binding and shall inure the benefit of the town and BRT and their respective successors and assigns. And item 8, each party's signature below evidences its approval of the third amendment to the agreement set forth. That's it. It's a very, very simple stopgap measure where I think this board wants to let planning and zoning have time to see what happens next, and then I think it's a we don't jeopardize the project stalling or default of any financing, because I don't think that benefits the town at all, and it doesn't benefit the developer, but it certainly doesn't benefit the town either. All right, any questions on that? Do you want to call for the question, or do you want to talk about it? Or does someone want to move the resolution? Okay.
Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, June 18, 2024. Resolution authorizing the fixing of real property assessments. Be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the third amended and restated fixed assessment agreement dated June 18, 2024, originally approved March 15, 2017, amended October 14, 2021, amended March 22, 2022, between the Town of Portland and BRT DeMarco PTP LLC, and authorizes Ryan J. Curley, the first selectman, to sign the fixed assessment agreement on the town's behalf.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
Dan, just going to go over what he's proposing, or not?
I mean, we can. Do you want to?
I mean, just a breakdown.
Sure. Dan, you want to call us?
Just a quick breakdown, Dan.
Point of order. That's not on the agenda item. If he is the speaker, we move public comment from the bottom.
What? It is.
On the agenda item, Mr. Bergen, the speaker, please move public comment, so you hear from both sides.
There's no. Okay, we don't. All right, we'll just.
We're good, let's just move.
We'll just call for the question. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next item, I believe, is public comment. I lost my agenda.
Request of tax.
Oh, okay. Let's see if that.
I'll back you up on it.
Request a refund of excess tax payment. Core Logic, $2,137.94.
I will second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay, public comment, item 8.
Starting to get like Sean Wayne's father years ago. So, first I'd like to start off by, what I'm about to say doesn't mean I'm against Dan moving forward with the project, was more commercial. Obviously, I have a lot of questions on definitions and things for planning and zoning. But what I want to bring up tonight is what you guys just voted on. Number 1. Number 2, you just allow just the exteriors of buildings. The original agreement had everything. So you literally made a decision to It's right in there, I can go over it with you. I have it right in front of me, but more importantly, I don't believe, and I've reviewed this, and I was one of the ones that helped craft this. Once he's found in default, the cure has to be taken care of. You can't then amend it. So in your defense, I can tell you what needed to happen was you're allowed to amend this agreement if you and Mr. Ritchie both agreed to it. You would have had to amend the default category. The default category says it needs to be cured. It doesn't say you can then just start amending things. And I want to be clear, in the piece of paper that you gave, saying he's now not going to be in default, and I want to be clear just so you guys understand what's going on here, that statement is accurate. He won't be in default. Well, I didn't even read what you put him in default of, so I don't want to make that statement. But he's still in default in many ways. If you guys choose, and I do not recommend this, do not put him in default. But you need to know this signed one dated 2021 still says 2 phases multiple times. It's a 3-phase project. But I don't want you to put him in default yet. You waited on the last one. Keep that. We can work together. Let's see what happens at planning and zoning. But I want to be clear, I don't think you guys understood some of the ramifications, but you now let him off the hook for the insides. And I hope he's still going to finish one of the buildings that he's going to use for his own project, but you never know. So you're never going to get that back. You got to be very careful on what you do. I'm a little upset that I received this at 7 o'clock tonight. I requested this a while ago. Ryan Curley kept his word to me. He said I would get it prior to the meeting. I got it here at the meeting. He be more high-tech than me, and he had it sent at 7 o'clock to me, and I was able to review it. And like I said, I already found multiple issues in it. You guys voted on it. There are multiple issues. I understand we have to move forward as a town, but just keep that in mind. There are still multiple defaults. This one may be cured. Let's see what happens to planning and zoning. Let's hope the project is successful, and let's work together. So, but I wanted to point that stuff out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any other public comment?
I know we don't have general discussion, but can I say that I have a lot of people asking questions about the YMCA, the camping or something. Is the water tested? They don't want they should send their kids to campus somewhere.
Okay. Actually, I can't answer this. The water is required to be tested at the camp on a bi-weekly basis, I believe, and the water has been phenomenal. In fact, the camp has shared the water results with NRCS and DEEP to make sure that if we're going to pump out the pond and it's going to go into the river, we want to make sure that we're not pumping contaminated water anywhere into the river. So the testing, which is done at the swimming area of Joe's Pond, is clean, and in fact, the levels have been very, very good. I have not heard otherwise, but I would tell any parents that are concerned to definitely reach out to the camp because they have that data, and I'm sure they are sharing it, and they would be willing to share that. It's a good question. Is there any other public comment this evening? Anyone online? All right. Entertain a motion. I will second that. All right. All those in favor?
Well, that was really quick.
Have a good night.